We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.
Concern yourself not with my real name, or my physical mask. Concern yourself only that for now, I have chosen ethics and morality, and chosen a physical mask over a digital one that comes more naturally. I am nomen nessio. Rights are not privileges.
Hello everyone, this is Nomenesio, coming to you live from my studio here. Today I am going to be having Chris Throgmorton on here with us. He is longtime freedom fighter, and he is having some issues, ongoing issues in LaPorte, Indiana. Alright, on the 3rd, yesterday, he was arrested by the LaPorte Police Department after an altercation. That altercation led to his arrest. Give me 1 second here. Alright, basically that altercation led to his arrest, and then, which now led to this. We thought that he was going to be in until the 6th, with no bond. Took several phone calls later before we was able to get them to realize that, in fact, he was not out on a bond, and he should be able to get a bond. Alright, it is... Alright, so basically, he was able to get out sometime in the wee hours of the morning. Give me just a moment here. I am going to give him a call, and we're going to get him on the line, and we're going to go ahead and start talking about his what just happened, and then what has been going on over the last several years here that has led up to it. Alright, give me just a moment here, please. Hey, Chris.
Good day, sir.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm all right.
Alright, give me just a moment here. Let me bring you up here. There you are. So, everyone, this here is Chris. He was the one that was arrested yesterday morning and had the altercation. Was released this morning. I just gave them a brief synopsis, basically, of what I just said. I said it in a few more words just before we got on here. So you're live on my YouTube channel here, and just go ahead and go over briefly what happened yesterday through until the current present time, and then we can go ahead and go into the history of it.
All right. So basically, yesterday, I was the whole the one that I was supposed to be out on bond for. It's actually a summons. I went downtown to the sheriff's department. I was trying to pick up this summons. I was trying to get served, but they didn't have it yet, so I was apparently too early for them. So I went down to City Hall to take care of some other things. I needed to fill out a records request for the video from Friday, where there's like 5 officers and Nick Otis and me, and I don't get arrested for trespassing this day, to be more specific. But then, like 4 days later, I'm somehow banned from the property. So I'm down there trying to fill out one of these old forms here for a dispatch log and a police report from that day, or a police report from that day, and then the dispatch log from the day where I was arrested, June 5th, after the Board of Public Works and Safety meeting. Everything goes fine. I'm recording the entire time. I take care of my business. I go outside, and as I'm crossing the crosswalk, the Board of Public Works and Safety dude, Mitch Ficus, is crossing the crosswalk from the other side of the street. And as we pass each other, I'm basically like, when you going to fire that bum ass attorney? Or are you just going to continue to let him waste the community's money? Um, he sort of, just gives me this funny look and is like, I don't know. And then I say, I mean to imply I won't vote for him again, or I can't wait till election time so I can vote against him or whatever. But I accidentally say I can't wait till you vote again. And he says, hey, why don't you stop being an asshole? I say, why don't you guys stop being a bunch of thieving, lying crooks? Um, about this point, he gets all chest to chest with me and tries to grab my phone. I yank the phone away. He grabs my wrist, and then as I'm pulling to grab my wrist away, I sort of thrust a little bit, and he he pulls as I'm pushing, and he takes my phone case pretty good to his glasses. I'm thinking. Um, so I'm now like, well, fuck, stop recording, and call 911 for the dude. Explain to them, what happened. He needs an ambulance probably. Um, and then I continue recording. I go down to Temple during this process because I end up actually apparently hanging up on 911. They need to hang up on me. Otherwise, it locked me out of my phone for like 3 minutes. I didn't have any Wi Fi, no internet, and I couldn't make any calls for 3 minutes. The only thing I could do was record. So I started recording again, and then that's the officer, Pat Sites, coming up to me and basically asking me what happened. I tell him. He tells me he wants to see the video right then. I tell him I'm currently recording. I'd like to be able to contact somebody to come here and witness whatever is about to happen before I stop recording based upon the history. And he basically tries to go into, well, then you're under arrest. So I'm like, fuck it, you know what I mean? I'm trying to avoid the whole going to jail thing, whatever. I'll stop recording to show him the video. This all happens. He basically sees what goes down on the video, goes across the street, talks to him, says that we're both about to be under arrest. And I'm like, well, like, if he's cool, I'm cool. He goes back across the street. Mitch Ficus wants to press charges. The cop's telling me that they're getting a warrant for him, but I'm under arrest right now. I'm not really sure how that goes, but I didn't see him come in at any point in time after me. I was in processing for a good few hours. And when I bonded out, the officer in booking said that they didn't know anything about him coming in either, and that was like a little after 1 in the morning, a little after midnight, something like that. So basically, yeah, now I'm charged with battery, and I got to go to court. I had to bond out, all that. They tried to not let me bond out because of this. I bonded out. They returned my bond money, and now they're waiting to issue me a summons. The jail took that as me out on bond, but another corporal there cleared this all up anyway. They fixed the paperwork, whatever, and I was able to bond out very early this morning. That's about it as far as the current stuff.
All right. Cool. So basically, um, and as far as I'm aware, and Mitch and I do have some history. So if I slip up and call him Mitch the bitch, it is, I guess, sort of intentional. Uh, but all right. So with Mitch, it's give me 1 second here. All right. Okay. So um. I'm trying to fix this audio reverb here. I got the audio going into both the Facebook feed plus into the mixer. Alright.
Hey, actually, give me 1 second. I'm gonna go get this last clip time and type it into you on the laptop.
Okay, well, don't worry about that. I'm just gonna have you just go ahead and tell me what clips that you would like for me to play, and we'll go ahead and do it that way. and then I'll fix this while we're on clip. Alright, so if you just want to go ahead and start telling this history about what has been going on and all that, then we can go ahead and go into that. Let me know what video it is that you want me to queue up, and we can go ahead and get that done, okay?
All right.
Alright.
All right. In the beginning, this all starts with um, August 12th of 2015. I'm at the gas station buying cigarettes and some, maybe a beverage or something. I don't remember what else was on my mind. I ended up only getting cigarettes. Anyway, I see a correctional officer who works midnight solitary confinement from my memory at the gas station in uniform and everything, and he comes up to me and sort of puts his hand on my back and engages me in conversation. I don't like to be touched. I have PTSD and I'm diagnosed with Asperger's. I just don't do the physical contact thing, especially all of a sudden, random strangers touching me thing. So his whole theory is that he recognized me from the jail. My theory is that that's not exact. Like, we're not friends because of that. Don't touch me. So I go outside and I'm sort of upset about it, and I decide I'm gonna call the police and basically try to put something on the record. I would like this to not happen again. Like, you're the police. He works at the jail. Can somebody pass this on to whoever? I would just like to have it documented, and I would like to prevent this kind of thing from happening again. You may recognize my mugshot and compare it to my face. When you see me out and about, that doesn't mean you can come up and touch me. The officer comes, and I'm trying to be somewhat cooperative with him because I'm very much so, I'm well read on statistics and how things like this play out for mentally ill people and disabled people and interactions with law enforcement. I'm fully aware that this could go bad. So I'm trying to be very, basically cooperative with the gentleman. And he basically insinuates that my trying to be cooperative is suspicious. Nobody's cooperative. Even if I called him for some reason, my asking if there's a camera he would like me to stand in front of, or what he would like me, where do you want to do this conversation? How do I, whatever? Can I put my hands in my pockets? I understand you didn't stop me, but I have too many questions and things of this nature, so this was suspicious activity. It starts to basically go bad quick. Everything is suspicious. Then I'm basically explaining, like, I'm not trying to be suspicious. I'm trying to be cooperative because I don't want you to think I'm suspicious, because I don't want this to go bad. Like, I don't want to get shot, essentially. And this is basically where it starts to get serious. Why would you get shot? I don't know what the reason would be, but I don't want to be shot, so I want to be cooperative with you. Why would, like, the police don't shoot people, basically, is what he's trying to tell me. The police don't fucking shoot people. This doesn't happen at all, ever. The police don't shoot people. I have nothing to worry about. And I'm sitting there like, what planet are you on? This is nonstop. What is happening is police are shooting people. So I asked for a supervisor. Supervisor comes. They basically, while we're waiting on a supervisor, my girlfriend's talking to the cop that's there, and she's basically telling him, like, whatever you do, don't touch him. Don't touch him. Whatever you do not touch him. He does not like to be touched. The supervisor comes. They have their little powwow about what I do not know. Because the first thing he does is he walks up and he grabs the back of my arm because I'm not facing them, and I turn around like, what are you doing? Like this is why you're here, He basically, lets me explain a little bit, but it kind of goes a good bit the same way. Like, he identifies with PTSD and all this, but once I tell them I'm not a veteran, it seems to be like some sort of a pissing contest where I'm saying that it's possible I could get shot and I can have PTSD even though I'm not a veteran. They're basically like, police don't make you nervous, and you can't possibly have PTSD if you weren't in a war. I end the whole thing and tell them basically I'm going tomorrow to file a complaint because this is fucking terrible. This is bad experience. You guys like didn't help the situation at all. I'm the only one trying to de-escalate things. Like, you're very misinformed. It was just a poor situation. I'm going to file a complaint tomorrow. I go the next day to file a complaint. This would have been August 13th, 2015. It's the Assistant Chief of Police, Julie Smith. This is basically, she basically tells me that it's not the first time that someone had been arrested and come in to file a complaint, and lied on an officer. And this was the environment kind of feel up until they figured out that I hadn't been arrested and maybe I wasn't lying, but if the situation was sort of escalated to the point that they were in mode and it gets baited into the same argument where I'm like, I was nervous, I don't want to be shot, yada, yada, yada. And then the officers start to focus on the fact that I have pocket knives. And then it turns into, well, you have pocket knives, so now you're the threat. I take my pocket knives out and I put them on this little counter over here, and I basically call them cowards, and insinuate that they're basically trying to deflect from the actual thing of what I'm saying, which is kind of serious. That these kind of things can go wrong, and I could be shot. Like, I'm not making this up; it's statistically proven. But the knives become their focus, and then later they physically carry me out of the building, and each officer throws a knife at me when I ask for my property to be returned. I go to City Hall to find out how to file, a complaint on this without interacting with the police. It's there that I come into contact with the city attorney, Rebecca Meyer McQuaid. She basically tells me to come back, and I explain the situation. She at one point asked me to show her these pocket knives. I take them out of my pockets. I have them both closed. One of them was a little bit smaller than a lighter. One of them was about a little bit bigger than a lighter, and it's currently lost. I dropped it in the lake, but not not a machete or anything. Just basic working man's pocket knives. Show them to her, and open palms, closed pocket knives. Put them back in my pocket. Go about the conversation. She later refers to this as me displaying knives to her, but she met with me like the next day, I think, and took this actual complaint from me. I did a recorded statement that felt very much more like a deposition than an actual complaint taken from me. They weren't really trying to help me. They were trying to discredit everything I was saying throughout the conversation. They tell me to come back and give me a copy of this statement that I make on a CD. I come back, and I believe I gave my statement on August 20th, I think. I come back, like around August 20th, and then I show up to get the copy of it the next day. The chief of police is there. I'm sort of taken off guard by this, and I don't really look at what I'm signing. I think it's just a basic, them covering themselves to get like a receipt, hey, we gave this to you. I look at it later, it says, hey, we gave this to you, but you also agree to confidentiality. It's a notice of confidentiality agreement, which I signed, not reading what I signed. Lesson learned, folks. But then the chief of police tells me basically, it's whatever the complaint system has run its course in the police department, which I don't know how, what happened, and it would now be forwarded to the prosecutor's office. I'm sort of thinking like, well, this wasn't really a criminal matter because I wasn't trying to file charges on the guy. I was just sort of trying to get something on the record. And then it turned into a complaint. I don't really even know which part of the process we're talking about now, the original one with the officer or, the two officers that came to respond to that report. Basically, basically, though, he tells me to go to the prosecutor's office. It's run its course with the police department. Now everything, all the paperwork and everything's at the prosecutor's office. Go to the prosecutor's office. Go to the prosecutor's office. They tell me they don't know what I'm talking about at all. They don't have any clue. They don't have any paperwork. So I asked to speak to somebody other than the secretary with a little more knowledge about what's going on there, somebody with more authority, maybe an actual prosecutor. They tell me nobody's available right now. They're busy right now. Okay, well, there's a chair right here, and there's reading material. I'll wait. Next thing I know, she's hit some sort of button. The same chief of police that just told me to go there, and about 4 or 5 more officers with him show up and basically chanting in unison, "Are you refusing to leave? Are you refusing to leave? Are you refusing to leave?" So I basically assess the situation like, all right, this is about to go bad. There's nobody here. At this point, I wasn't recording anything. So I leave. Try back a month later. I give them, hey, I gave them like 30 days. Maybe they have this paperwork. Maybe they're somewhere in the process. Go in. Exact same thing happens. Sit down in the waiting room. It's apparently not a waiting room. They act like it's a robbery. But I sit down in the waiting room. The exact same thing happens. Chief of police, like, now there's just more cops. Are you refusing to leave until I leave? This would have been in September, like the 25th, I think. I end up, give me one second. I end up taking about a 4-month hiatus and reading up on all sorts of, the complaint process, how to obtain copies of whatever the records would be, documentation. I've never been provided any paperwork except for the notice of confidentiality and this CD. But the police keep showing up like, like I'm doing something wrong. However, the police are the ones that told me to go where I'm at. So I do a bunch of research, and I basically end up studying up a good bit on public records requests and what a public record is, organic records, things of this nature. And February 5th, I go and I file public records requests, 5 different pages with references to 5 different dates. That would be August 12th, August 13th, August 20th, August 24th, and September 25th, I believe. I try to turn these in, or I take them to City Hall. I give them to the mayor's assistant. She makes copies. I'm video recording at this time. It's my first time recording. Everything goes fine. She seems weird about me recording, but no incidents. I then go to the police department and attempt to do the exact same thing. It's an officer, Dennis Bahena. He basically tells me, records is closed. We don't do that. I'd just like to turn them in. It just has to be somebody that works here to take them. I just need to turn them into the police department. Here you go. No, I'm not taking them. Or I tried to get him to basically give me a receipt. Somebody signed for them, give me a copy, whatever. He refused to do that. Just, was trying to get me to put them in a mailbox, stuff like that. No postage or an envelope or anything. I just had, 8 by 11 paper. That would have been on Friday, I believe, February 5th. 4 days later, Tuesday, February 9th, I go and attempt to turn in these public records requests at the police department again. It's, again, the chief of police, or the assistant chief of police, and she's basically like, very confrontational and all these things because I don't want to give them to her because she's specifically referenced in, one of these records requests about any sort of complaint process or anything that's happened with whatever I filed. She refuses to let me talk to anybody who would be a disability advocate or anything like that, or anybody other than her, and it basically turns into 2 officers telling me, "Are you refusing to leave?" Until I basically leave. I then go to City Hall to sort of be like, hey, I'm just trying to turn in this paperwork, and this is not how this is supposed to go. There are laws about this, which I read, quote you these statutes, everything. This is not the process. And nobody can refuse this process because it's state law. These are public records. police department and City Hall, the assistant chief of police calls the city attorney and tells her that I'm on my way down to City Hall, because it's like 5-6 blocks apart. This is according to the police reports. The city attorney calls back, says, yes, I'm there. They all locked themselves in their offices, and they're like, they're just not, like, they're pretending like nobody's in the building at like 2 p.m. These two officers follow me in the building while I'm walking around, sort of very confused. It's Tuesday at like 2 p.m. and there's nobody here. Like, it's just me and these two officers, and normal office setting people have all just disappeared, and it's very, there's like just a strange vibe. I can tell something's kind of off. But apparently they locked the building down while I was on my way there. The whole situation with the officers basically goes just worse and worse and worse. I end up dropping the camera at one point. It doesn't, record the beginning of in the building. There's like a 10-15 minute that happened that ends up lost because it didn't, save. But then it starts like, midway through the interaction with the officers at City Hall, all the way up to the arrest, and then into the Sally Port of the jail. I basically, I end up arrested for, after I'm out of the building, like they basically tell me that I'm trespassing, like all of a sudden, like, and they give me this letter from the city attorney that says, that I make people uncomfortable, so now I'm not allowed, on the property or whatever. But they don't actually give me this until after I'm in handcuffs and been arrested for this and numerous other things. But I end up basically leaving. I'm out front on the sidewalk, and at one point, while I'm on the sidewalk, they tell me I'm still on city property. So I walk in the road, I'm getting a couple plate numbers on my way, and then I'm then I'm telling them, how am I supposed to get home? They tell me the fastest route available. So I'm walking towards this crosswalk, which just so happens to be where I got arrested yesterday, about like maybe 6 feet from the same spot. But I'm walking to the crosswalk. I tell the officers goodbye and everything. They say goodbye to me. You can see at one point, I think it's like 15 into the video, there's no traffic at all on this road. It's just the officer. I say goodbye. I'm like 6 feet from this crosswalk. I turn around to go to the crosswalk. Then they tell me now I'm obstructing traffic. So I can't be in the road. I'm basically, now I'm sort of confused, like what the fuck are you guys doing? I can't walk on the sidewalk. I can't walk in the road. Well, how the fuck do I get home? Like, are you gonna give me a ride? Calm down, sir. No, like, this doesn't make any fucking sense. You guys backed me into like a logic corner, and now I'm freaking out. And while I'm freaking out, because I'm not processing how there's an out for me here. I know that this is about to go bad, so I'm internally fucking just melting. I know that I'm not going home. That's I'm definitely getting in this car. That's how they're going to solve this. Basically, they end up through this whole time they're shouting, disorderly conduct warnings. I end up apparently for the disorderly conduct charge, according to the police report, was help me. So yeah, I'm literally charged with disorderly conduct for yelling "help me." I end up charged with trespassing for, I don't know, being in City Hall or on the sidewalk or whatever. I end up charged with obstruction of traffic because someone pulled up to the stop sign while I was out there, and I yelled "help, help, I don't want to die, please, like, pay attention to what's going on here with these officers." They end up basically grabbing me from behind, tackling me. Nobody says I'm under arrest or anything. The mics end up disabled during the confrontation, both of them conveniently. So the only thing there is my video camera recording the incident, which just so happens one of them picks up and, not understanding how a camera works, doesn't turn it off. They just flip it over. So now it's just recording audio and like the snow that it's laying on, while I'm face down in the snow and they're trying to break my arm with a knee in my back. I end up transported to jail. I end up trying to basically explain my medical information. I've done a lot of time in solitary confinement. I have PTSD. It's all documented. The longer you leave me in the cell and processing, the harder it is for me to deal with it. I would just like to go to population because I don't want to freak out. Basically insinuating that I would freak out was threatening an officer. So I end up in solitary confinement immediately. I go to court the next day, shackles, handcuffs, belly chain, the whole works. I have a lot of sensory issues. I have PTSD, so it's solitary confinement is torture. So I basically went to court the next day after a night of solitary confinement, where the untreated mentally ill scream for dear life. It's where the temperatures of everything are tampered with. You lose clothes, there's no food, no legal materials, no Bible, no nothing. Terrible conditions, constitutionally violative conditions. In fact, right now they don't have towels for people when they come in. They're overworked, all sorts of stuff. Anyway, I end up going to court the next day, trying to represent myself, explain the situation. Indiana, it's trial rule 2.6, I believe, or Indiana Rules of Judicial Conduct, Rule 2.6. Anybody named as a defendant in a criminal charge has the opportunity to be heard. That is me. I have the right to defend myself. One of the officers at the jail basically took this as me arguing with the judge, which is what a lawyer literally goes to school to, is to argue with the judge. But this officer ends up grabbing me. I jerk away. They try to pull me up. I grab the table. I end up flipping it. So now I'm being psychologically evaluated for 30-day hold and all these things. And I'm unable to bond out for 30 days. I do the first 2 weeks in solitary confinement, and then the next 2 weeks in my classification, and do 2 psychological evaluations, one of which was not entered on the docket for a year. And it's basically because I quoted a bunch of George Carlin about how it's a big club and we're not in it, and their job is to 3 friends and a stranger. I wouldn't have entered it on the record either. But essentially, as you said, I know exactly what I'm talking about and exactly what's going on. So maybe they're being honest about how the justice system really works. Anyway, by the way, that cost the taxpayers $800, and I fucking wasted every bit of the time. It's ridiculous. Just the same, I bond out. Maybe March 16th, I go to this Human Rights Commission in Michigan City to see the director, Jeff Deutsch. Just ran for some sort of township trustee, maybe, or something like that recently, and lost. Terrible person. Anyway, he basically insinuates he was there to, from what I understand, be the guy that advocates on my behalf, especially for somebody who has a disability. He knows, the human rights and civil rights stuff. This was what I was led to believe when I had my complaint. He ends up basically, later telling me that there was no complaint at all. He was there to advise the city attorney. The local city ordinances don't even allow him to take my complaint. And at one point, it's basically, sir, are you recording? Yes, I am. You need to leave. And that's the end of that. So I go through about 22 months fighting this court case, 5 charges: resisting law enforcement, battery on a law enforcement officer, trespassing, disorderly conduct, and obstruction of traffic. I meet with the prosecutor, because I'm pro se, for a pretrial conference like May 18th, I want to say, 2016. I give him all kinds of information, show him all kinds of stuff, that I meet back with him in June, and think he may have dismissed the trespassing and the battering on a law enforcement officer in between those two dates, or right after I met with him June 8th. At one point, he tells me I'm absolutely correct, that everything is, that he doesn't know why the police officers were there. Everything is correct about what I was saying up until I get outside the building. And then I chose to stay and argue with the officers when I could have just left. I'm basically like, yeah, why the fuck are they there? Other than to coerce me into not filing a complaint against the police department and rob me of my civil right to do so. He didn't have an answer for that question, so ultimately all charges end up dismissed. Like 5 prosecutors later, 6 public defenders later, 3 judges later, 22 months later, in November of 2017. I end up at one point with another contempt of court, do 7 days, for asking a Judge Friedman, who is the Veterans and Drug Court judge. She's the basically person that funnels everybody to the Swanson Center. Her husband is the board president, Shaw Friedman, keeping the money in the family kind of thing. Anyway, she ends up charging her with contempt of court for asking her to recuse herself because she was a conflict of interest because of who her husband is, who was a mission attorney or something at the time. Basically, since this all began with a sheriff's deputy insinuated that Shaw Friedman, the county commission attorney or whatever the fuck he was at the point, would be a conflict of interest. She seemed to take this as some sort of a personal attack on her marriage or something, simply because I mentioned that her husband was a conflict of interest. I end up in some sort of weird word game with her where she wanted me to prove that I wasn't in contempt of court, and I asked when she wanted me to speak. She stared at me for a while and didn't say anything at all, and then she just says I'm in contempt. I sat in jail for 7 days. Just all kinds of things. Nobody recused themselves. Nobody really did anything. They just shuffled me around. Like I said, 6 public defenders. All the time I'm trying to represent myself pro se, not really given a choice, about going to trial on my own or anything. Just public defender speaks for you, yada, yada, yada. Oh, you don't like him? Well, we'll get you a new one. No, I'd like to represent myself. Never happened. In Indiana, we have something called a forensic advocate for autism. I asked for one of these, never provided. Like I said, about 20 months into it, I believe July 21st of 2017, I filed a motion to dismiss, 46 pages long. That day, the judge recuses herself, judge number 2. I also took a copy of this and provided it to the city, implicating their attorney in numerous crimes, civil rights violations, all these things in a sworn affidavit notarized, yada, 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 on August 21st of 2017 as well. Nobody replies to this at all, ever. It's still been unchallenged, as well as every other piece of paperwork that I filed in that cause. I went through 5 prosecutors. None of them ever filed a single response to any of the paperwork that I filed. I filed basically about like 4 different briefs while I was going through that 22 months. But judge ends up later dismissing it. Third judge dismisses it for a trial rule 4C reason, which is basically they ran out of time. He never ruled on a single thing that I put pages and pages of case law into about the constitutional violations. I mentioned the timing, in a smaller brief and a much, much smaller fashion, way less case law, just to prove how much time has gone by, as a very minor detail in this. He chose to dismiss it for this very reason. Now, the police department has taken this to the extreme. They're under the impression that the prosecutor's office ran out of time and, that I was completely guilty and I would have been found guilty at trial if the prosecutor's office would have just had enough time. Meanwhile, I'm the one trying to go to trial the entire time. They don't want to. Um,
One second here. There we go. Answer. Oh. All right. Give me just a moment here.
My bad, hit the wrong button. I'll
No,
mute
that's
it.
all right. Okay, so yeah, when like I just messaged you, just whenever I'm talking, and you're not, just mute that so that it doesn't revert back in. Let me get you back over here. Um,
We're playing videos
back,
or anything while we're doing.
back, back on screen. All right, now you're back on screen. Okay, everything should be good again. I believe you're muted.
Could you still
There you go. I can hear you now.
could you could you still hear me like that? Still
Yep.
hear me like that?
Go ahead.
All right, we're good.
Yes.
All right, where was I?
Just go ahead and start with where you remember.
All right, yeah. So basically, this all ends up dismissed November 2017. October, or no, around February, what is it? February 21st, I believe, 2017. I go to a city council meeting, and now mind you, this whole time I'm going to court, I'm trying to engage with the local governments, Human Rights Commission, Police Merit Commission, City Council, um, all these different entities that are supposed to have some sort of responsibility to make sure these kinds of things are handled and dealt with. You know, they're refusing to give me all these documents. They refuse to discuss any of this. A lot of it is the city attorney speaking, on behalf of the city, while I'm basically saying, hey, look, I'm being prosecuted and all kinds of things, and this shouldn't have happened. Like, you know, this attorney has clearly organized some sort of conspiracy to avoid providing documentation of a complaint. It's likely because she had me sign a confidentiality agreement, for my actual complaint, and nothing was done with it. She's probably complicated, and that's why. Um, but I go to a city council meeting in February of 2017, and I'm given a new letter. Mind you, they call these letters orders. The police are under the impression that this is like a court order, a court order for no trespassing, and then I end up with a letter that they think is a court order that says I have to be patted down prior to entering the building. I believe this is directly related to sensitive medical information that I provided them in my original complaint that the notice of confidentiality covers. I believe they've used it to strategically target characteristics of my Asperger's and PTSD with the pat down, knowing, that I dislike physical contact. I dislike it, especially if I'm not committing a crime. I'm not trying to be patted down. It's ridiculous. But it targets these different attributes of my disability and not wanting the contact right before I'm going into a city council meeting where I'm going to speak during public comment about, governmental municipal corruption and local government, fuck, just ridiculous spending, how much money they waste on me, like how much money they waste on me is ridiculous. And basically they're responsible for all these things, and then I end up basically, I would like to know where the pat down thing comes in. All of a sudden I just come here and you guys are allowed to pat me down. There has to be a process for this because this is a search. This is, under like Perry v. Ohio, this is a search and seizure of my person. You guys, you can't just pat, like nobody else is getting patted down. It's just aimed specifically at me. And they're saying that it has to do something with these knives being shown to the city attorney in open palms, closed, during my, explaining to her what happened that she takes a complaint with later. She basically describes, in one of these incidents where the police show up at the prosecutor's office, she ends up consulted, and she describes herself as somebody who's able to like negotiate with me ordinarily, volunteers herself as comfortable talking with me, not in fear for her safety or anything crazy like this. This pat down thing comes 549 days, or 1 year, 6 months, and 9 days after the knives were displayed to her. 549 days later, I end up being subject to pat downs for this specific claim of action. There's videos of all these pat downs. Eventually, in October of 2017, I end up refusing until there's a legit court order. This is a letter. I'm not going. I'm going to the building. I'm not being patted down. This is fucking insane. I'm not having it. They refuse to let me in the building. They literally lock the doors. There's about 2 hours of 4 squad cars, 5, 6 officers down there while they run around trying to find a court order that doesn't exist. About 3/4 of the way through, I believe an officer, Billy Degnagard, figures out that this is a bullshit letter from the city attorney and it doesn't mean a fucking thing because it's not a court order from the judge. And they sort of start to like fade out, they trickle off. I end up leaving. I go the next day to the police department to try to find out what's up. Did you guys find that paperwork you claim that you have? They don't have it. I go to the prosecutor's office. The prosecutor basically, the first thing he says is, "That's strange. There's no judge's signature." I said, "Yeah, that's what I said." And then I haven't had a pat down since then. So, by the way, I've been going quite a bit to turn in public records requests on my own free will. I don't ever go do it during a public meeting. I do it specifically at times when it's not a public meeting, and I've yet to be arrested for this bogus trespass letter for quite some time. My recent arrest, June 5th, for trespass is supposed to be based upon being banned from the building for the letter from this previous city attorney, though Friday, when I was there before with 5 officers, I wasn't banned from the building. I ended up talking with them outside a good bit afterwards later and everything. But all these things are basically orchestrated by a bunch of attorneys who run the governments around here for real. None of my local governmental officials speak on anything because they're all under this whole like anticipation of litigation, so the attorneys are the only ones that speak for them in regards to me. So I can't get any information really at all, and everything has to go through public records request, so that's why I do all this. But this case ends up dismissed in November of 2017. The pat downs stopped in October of 2017. There ends up being a new city attorney, Nick Otis. So I think it was January 3rd of 2018, I started actually getting documents that I had been requested, numerous public records. All sorts of police reports that I had been requesting that the former city attorney told me basically, a bunch of nonsense that she made up basically, and that I needed stuff that I don't need. But he ends up giving me all this stuff, most of which would have been exculpatory evidence in the case that was just dismissed 2 months prior, and would have shown that all the claims I was making were true, and likely would have gotten my case dismissed much, much sooner. They never sent any of this paperwork to the prosecutor's office at all. But they claimed that very similar incidents are law enforcement investigatory records. So a lot of my records requests that I've put in end up as deemed as law enforcement investigatory records, which I currently have a civil action to try to obtain. I end up with a court order for all of this. Or hold on a minute. Let me back up a little bit. February of this year, they filed a probable cause affidavit for disorderly conduct for one of my public comments at a city council meeting. I file a probable cause hearing, or I file a request for a probable cause hearing. The prosecutor enters their appearance like an hour later. Nothing happens for like 4 months. But that case would have made the public records evidence or discovery material. My hearing for the public records was April 10th. They ended up finding no probable cause for this case April 18th, but I don't find out, and I don't see anything for the record or on the record about it until June 5th when I go to bond out. They say I'm already out on bond. This is the first time they did that. I'm already out on bond stuff, Melvin. But they try to say I was already out on bond, and then I end up having the sheriff look into it. He calls the judge, finds out, basically they found out on April 18th there was no probable cause, but they don't actually put it on the record until June 5th when I'm trying to bond out. I bond out. I believe they returned my bond money on the 20th, maybe, of last month, June 20th, I believe. I had it June 23rd, so I went to the mail and all that. But I had the bond money back June 23rd. Now, I get arrested for this new stuff. They try to hold me for the summons that I'm waiting to receive from the sheriff that's going to knock on my door. Yesterday, prior to this stuff happening, my records request, I was there trying to get the summons. So they tried to not let me bond out again, and then somebody looked into it, and now we're all caught up.
All right.
There's a good bit I left out. Like at one point, I tried a citizen's arrest the mayor and the city attorney at the city council meeting. They end up, one of the city council people goes on the radio about me after the October 2nd sort of locking the building, locking me out, and having all these cops out there for like 2 hours. But at this point, the city attorney's gone. The mayor has moved on. The chief of police has been delegated as a captain, and the entirety of the Human Rights Commission has resigned. And I've gotten nowhere other than that. Nobody will formally or like there's no acknowledgement at all of any sort of wrongdoing transpiring in the way that my situation was handled at all, ever. It's just they just stare at me with blank faces every time I go to these meetings and try to talk to them about it. And they're doing their best to try to keep as much paperwork evidence from me as possible. Anything that I get without having to sue them in circuit court for really surprises me. But it's it's been wild, man. It's been a crazy ride. Like they try to arrest me for all 5 of these things. I was just thinking in my head yesterday, as a sort of a chuckle to myself, the next thing I'm going to get arrested for is obstruction of traffic, because they're basically going one by one with the case that they had all 5 charges at before. Now they're trying them all, 1 and 2 at a time. I end up arrested for battery, not battery on a police officer, but battery on a, I don't know what he is, a Board of Public Works and Safety member. But yeah, he's likely not going to be charged. He's he's kind of a well-off politician dude around here. But they got like 48 hours to file or something, probable cause. So we'll see what they do. But they say they're supposed to charge him and me. He's supposed to have a warrant, but we'll see. Um, I highly doubt it myself.
Alright. If you can remember to mute that, then I won't reverb. Alright, cool. So, basically, all they have really done so far is the old mayor got to move up and just be involved in state level corrupt politics now. The old attorney went with her. The she got replaced by Nikki, and then with the police situation, they basically just shuffled the cards a little bit, and all the cards are still in play. So
Yeah, it sounds.
yeah, so that's pretty much the most accurate description of all that. So is there any specific clips that you want to highlight and that I can go ahead and play for everybody real quick here?
Yeah. All right. So the March 16th video with Michigan City Human Rights Commission Director Jeff Deutsch. That's where he says basically that nobody can take my complaint at all.
Which one was that?
March 16th of 2016.
March 16th,
All to do, I believe,
2016. Okay, yeah, the one that says Michigan City Human Rights Commission.
yeah, Jeff Deutsch.
All right.
From like started about 1 minute 38 seconds in, go to maybe like 3:14,
1
and
minute 38 to 3:14. All right.
yep,
Give me just a minute here. Pause. Minute and 38 to 3:14. All right. I started a few seconds early. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and play that now. I'll let you know when we're done.
Can I help you?
Looking for you, I think.
You're the guy from the Porte.
Correct. I'm the guy from the Porte.
How may I help you?
Well, I attempted to file a complaint with your office. I assume it was investigated and all that, so I'm trying to find some sort of paper copy of that.
You never filed a complaint with this officer.
Okay, is there a reason why I didn't?
First of all, you live in the Porte.
Right.
We don't investigate complaints from the Porte.
So, why were you present during my citizen complaint?
In LaPorte?
Yeah.
Yes, I was just there because they asked me to be there.
Yeah, I asked for you. They told me they didn't have a Human Rights Commission in LaPorte, so
Correct.
they had to use the Michigan City one as a default.
You never asked me for anything.
Yeah, no, I wasn't the one that contacted you. But then, while you were there... So, your office hasn't been involved in this at all?
No.
And you didn't investigate any sort of human rights violations?
No.
Is there a reason for that?
Can we
Yes,
bring me a water?
there's an ordinance that states I cannot investigate LaPorte
Thank you.
on Michigan City residents.
Right, so why did you not explain that? And why did you come to LaPorte?
Because they asked me to be there
Right. So,
as a advisor.
whose rights are you...
Sir, is your camera going?
Correct.
Please step outside.
I believe that I'm in a public facility. No? Is this a public entity? No? Okay. I'm being advised to leave.
Have a good day, sir.
Yep, you too.
Alright. So we went ahead and played that clip up until the time that he had kicked you out of the office.
All right. That's the complaint they told me that really happened, which didn't. And then I end up trying to go to LaPorte ends up establishing a human rights commission shortly after I gave my complaint. Maybe it inspired them, who knows? But that's I end up the first time I go to talk to them, the city attorney is part of the Human Rights Commission at that time. Later, they changed the city ordinance where she doesn't end up being part of the Human Rights Commission needed for a quorum. But at the time, she was needed for the quorum to happen. She was supposed to be there. Apparently, she was supposed to have showed up with her kid or something, and then found out that I was there, and then she ends up hiding upstairs in her office while one of the Human Rights Commission members ends up calling the cops on me, and they end up, are you refusing to leave? Yada yada yada. But at the time, one of the Human Rights Commission members was Gail Paynes. He's the director of code enforcement. He was supposed to be responsible for investigating this, and basically, this is what they had to say. You're going to want to start that would be the August 18th video of the Human Rights Commission. Should be a guy sitting at a podium. There's a civility counts sign in front of him.
August 18th?
Yeah, August 18th, 2016. 13 minutes, 45 seconds in till about 14 minutes, 47 seconds. Now, really quick, it should be noted that this is a public.
I'm not seeing that one here on your list. Oh wait, Human Rights Commission meeting canceled.
No, 1 second.
All right. I mean, basically, in order to keep this as short as possible, though, is there anything else that would be more important to be able to show that you want to show? Any of the interactions with law enforcement at the city hall, anything like that?
Yeah, I'm back. What's up?
Yeah. So, I mean, are there any other interactions that you would want to show that might be more important to show, like interactions with law enforcement, anything like that, that before we get into like the question and answer session for anybody that has questions?
Um, I got a phone call with the city attorney that says a lot. Um,
Okay. And that's viewable on
the
your
the arrest.
channel, and everybody, your channel is up here on the screen, so they can see how to go ahead and get to that. They just type in LaPorte County, Indiana Corruption Watch in the search box, and that'll take you directly to Chris's page, and you can go through the videos and check all that out.
For anybody that goes there, thank you very much for the views and support. It's been a long, rough ride. Any support's greatly appreciated. Thank you very much.
All right. So
Um,
Cindy has asked, is that Mitch the Bitch Otis? No, that is not. Mitch's last name is Ficus. He owns Ficus, Mitch Ficus Builders. Um,
he-
it's really interesting how he's a member of the Board of Public Works and Safety Commission. That's really interesting if you look back at
he's also
some of his safety history in his business, but that's irregardless at the time.
the sheriff.
Can we verify? Okay, she wants to know, can we verify court is on Friday at 1:30 Central Time at the LaPorte County Complex, 809 State Street, LaPorte.
We can verify that. Yes, 1:30 p.m. on the 6th.
Okay, is that downstairs in the complex, or is that across the street in the, or across the path in the courthouse?
I believe it's in the courthouse. It's Judge Thorne's court. I think it might be on the second floor,
Okay,
Superior 3.
Superior. I thought, okay, all right, all right. If they have any questions, just ask for Superior 3 and they will direct you in the right direction. Does anybody else have any other questions for Chris? While we're waiting on that, Chris, if there's anything else that you want to explain, then I'll just go ahead and interrupt you when there's a good time
Uh,
here.
Basically, the point of all this is I had a simple request. I just wanted something simple done, and extreme measures were taken to hide and to lie about and to use the police department as a threat of force to prevent me from even the slightest bit of transparency or accountability within my local government. But I've persisted because basically, I'm somewhat well read on legal stuff, and I've been through a good amount of shit, so I'm basically sort of able to deal with this. But I don't want to see this happen to somebody else because it's crazy. And the fact that they specifically targeted my mental illness, which I deal with having. I am mentally ill. I don't deny it. I have post-traumatic stress disorder. Horrible shit that I've seen happen has affected me, and rightfully so. But they've targeted my mental illness to provoke me to, it seems like they want me to respond with violence. And my concern locally is that someone else someone else less able to maybe understand what's going on, or fight against what is going on the way that I have, would respond with what they're provoking them to do, which is violence. If I hadn't responded appropriately, with the complaint system and the process that is laid out for when there is an issue like this, somebody else may may react to these things. They could have gotten somebody hurt. Like if I was a different guy that reacted differently to the things that they're doing, and I responded the way that it seems like they want me to, there's no telling. Like if they had done this to somebody else who was mentally ill and didn't, wasn't able to just keep on and eventually, deal with the fact that there was a lot of confusion, that these things didn't make sense, that they felt like they were being targeted. This could have went really bad. Like they could have picked somebody else, and it could have went horribly. They've done this, the completely textbook wrong way throughout the entire process, and it's to the point that a lot of them should be jailed, prosecuted. It's to me, it's not about a lawsuit. Like I'm suing, but it's because hit them in the pocketbooks is basically all I can figure out. But a lot of these people, they shouldn't be voted for. They shouldn't be elected for certain. They've done nothing but waste money and resources to try to silence me, when all they really had to do was just acknowledge in the beginning that a small mistake happened, and assure me that it wouldn't happen again.
All right.
Admitting the smallest mistake is what
Okay.
ended up where we are. Okay.
So, all right. So I'm getting reverb again.
My bad. Didn't mean to go off long like that.
No, no, you're fine. So there's some other questions here. Let's see. A local person that lives in the South Bend area, they have a few questions here. First of all, they want to know about the video of the alleged assault from yesterday. They want to know a few things. They want to know, for one, was there a video? We've already established that there was, and that video. When do you think that you will make that
That
available
video,
to everybody to watch?
yeah, there is a video. All right, here's the thing though. Because I basically hit this dude with my phone has been taken as evidence about 9 p.m. last night when I was unable to bond out because I apparently was already out on bond with bullshit. The officer came and confiscated my phone from the jail. The only thing I was given was the receipt from the jail. I haven't seen a warrant or anything like that. I'm going to try to attempt to go tomorrow. Today's the 4th of July. I'm assuming they're not going to fucking have anybody there to deal with this, and that's what they're going to tell me, so I didn't even try to go and waste my time. I'm going tomorrow to try to get my phone. My theory is I hit him with my phone case, not the phone. They can have that. I just need the phone back. But
Well,
there's two videos.
and I guess I could talk to you more about it later, but technically, like as you said earlier, you admitted to the officer that the phone did come in contact with him, so there's no dispute in that. They can enter your testimony into that instead of the actual phone itself, but the phone's not going to tell them anything.
Yeah, I don't.
Unless they're gonna do DNA on his sweat on your phone, what are they keeping the phone for, right? I mean, they could take the video off of the phone, but that's about it. And the phone's got,
Debate.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, and that's even a debatable right there. So, and then what he also wanted to find out what the name and the badge numbers were of the arresting officers at the scene.
Um,
Let's see. Also, he wants to know how many active lawsuits do you have against the city of LaPorte, and are you of the opinion that federal lawsuits are the only way to go in your situation?
um, all right. First off, the officers would be Patrick Seitz is the first officer. There was another officer, I do not remember his name. I'll find that out later. Then there ends up being, I end up transported by Robert Hagler and a Ligon, Ligin, I believe, um, for this most recent one. Uh, Currently, as far as lawsuits go, by wording of civil action, I have one right now in the local circuit court for basically not for money, for documents, for police reports, public records that have been deemed law enforcement investigatory records by City Attorney Nick Otis. I'm basically claiming that they're basic public records, police reports that anybody can go get because that's what public records law are. We've been going back and forth with this. I was issued a court order. Now we're going through the process of waiting on a ruling for a motion to correct error, a motion to stay, and my responses to all that. That should all be happening soon and shortly, I'm assuming. As far as my case goes, there's a lot of small stuff like slander and defamation and everything I could go for state law with. I have 2 years as far as basic personal stuff goes. As far as personal injury goes in the state of Indiana, I have 6 years, I believe, if it's a public official, maybe 5 years if it's a public official. But I'm likely going for federal everything. 1983, but I'm making claims under 1962 C and D Civil RICO. Um, my first charge that I was going with for the RICO qualifications, as far as predicate offenses go, was tampering with witness. Tampering with a witness is defined as um, hindering the testimony of an individual who is testifying or intends to testify in an official proceeding. An official proceeding would be a 1983 lawsuit. I intend to testify in an official proceeding, a 1983 lawsuit. Any attempts to thwart my records, coming to me is basically a violation of RICO. Um, I'm basically, I'm adding everything into it. They've used violence, fraud upon the courts. Like, this shit goes deep locally. They've gotten the prosecutor's office involved. They've used a lot of the court stuff, but they're very hush hush as far as everything's going to the public. Like, apparently, I just smacked a politician in the eye, and I got today's newspaper, and it's not in there. Nothing's been, documented by the media for the past 3 years. They've done a good bit of extensive work to cover all this up.
Well,
So federally,
that does seem like that would
federally,
be the case. I mean, because it seems like when they do a lot of this stuff, and especially in northern Indiana here, they don't like to tell the media about it. That even when I was arrested 2 weeks ago myself, nothing like that hit the news at all. Normally, the Northwest Indiana Times is all over that stuff. The police blotters got all that stuff. Every single arrest that was made that week was in the paper, all over Northwest Indiana Crime Watch on Facebook, all of it except for mine. Not a single blip came across the media about it, and it won't until the lawsuit's filed and all that. It's going to be the same way with yours. I mean, they didn't even with yours. They didn't even put anything in the paper about that the city had the civil lawsuit for the paperwork, the documents, the public records request. Nothing was in the paper about that. So yeah, I mean they're just doing their best to try to keep it as hush hush as possible. As we were on here today, I was talking with somebody on the Accountability Checkpoint Project group on Facebook, and she was asking, well, why am I only showing one side of the story? And I said it's not about that. I did send an email in to the city. It's pretty much just a request because I know that they're not going to want to have me interview them, but I did give them the opportunity to contact me and be interviewed too for their side, so that everybody has a fair chance to give their side of the story. But I mean, they do. The thing is that they do. They have a propaganda rag called the, LaPorte County Herald Argus, and the news sleaze badge that the propaganda is for them all the time. So I mean, it's not. That's not even the case. I mean, they use it to the fullest effect that they can when it's in their favor. So, um, I
I
mean,
will point
basically,
out.
I mean, what if anybody here wants to be able to, help you out in any way, whether it be financially or not, what is the best way that they would be able to help you out besides to get the word out about this? And if they can help you out financially, do you have? I've already been asked if while you were in last night, I was asked if you had a PayPal account or something like that where people could donate to help. They wanted to help donate to get your help with your bond and everything, so it wasn't a burden on your family. So if there's anything they
Um,
can do to help financially, how can they best do that for you, or anything else for that matter?
I do not have anything like that set up. I've never really tried to ask too many people for help. When I get bonded out, it's usually because I'm lucky. Uh, I got a good few bit of people that care about me very much. Um, but to be honest, I if somebody was willing to try to help me out, yeah, it adds up. Like not just bond money, but copy paper and everything. Getting stuff done with paperwork, things of this nature. Memory cards. Um, but you can find me on Facebook. If you'd like to help me with money, I'll set something up. My name is Christopher Adam Throgmorton. Throgmorton. But yeah, I could use. I wouldn't mind, people with a good bit of knowledge, a brain to kick ideas around with when stuff happens. Sometimes you get writer's block with stuff. Essentially, um, just any support is appreciated. But if you're serious enough, you want to donate funds, get a hold of me, and I'll figure out how to set up a PayPal or something. I guess. But no, right now I don't have anything set up. I'll figure it out, I suppose.
Okay. All right. So there was a question here, real quick, about let's see here. Are you going to make the allegation in federal court that they're refusing you service upon violation of Section 3 of the ADA?
Yeah. I'm tying a whole lot of ADA stuff into my. I'm going with 1983, the 241 and 242 violations, civil RICO, and I'll be putting a good bit of the ADA stuff in there as well. I'm essentially I'm taking what I'm writing very seriously. I want you know, I would like to sort of try to carve a path for the next person this happens to. Um, to not have it happen again, not make it be so difficult because I read a good bit of legal stuff. I got citations all over the place, stuff printed out everywhere. I'll be putting a good bit of the ADA in there because a lot of this has been aimed towards my disability specifically, um, and it's appalling. So there's a lot of the ADA that I'll be putting in throughout the whole thing. As of right now, for anybody that wants an update, I'm about 45 pages and 25,000 words into what I'm writing. I'd say I'm maybe halfway done, 60% done. Um, Anything else?
Let's see here. All right. I don't believe there's any other questions from anybody. Now, I did want to go ahead and put out there that, and I can go ahead and send you this information. Um, but, all right. There is a pretty good, it's really hard nowadays to trust attorneys. because they are agents of the court and all
I
that.
know.
But Dan Calhoun in Griffith, Indiana, he's a
Too
really
bad.
good. He's a really good guy. And I believe he is one of the best in the area that might be able to help anybody in this type of situation. Okay,
Yeah.
but that is my
I know.
personal opinion. Okay.
I know that when you said that, that was actually what I was thinking of as the exception. He's one of the few exceptions. I like him. I would recommend him as well. Um, he's been a little bit of a help to me personally as well. So if he's watching, thank you, Dan. Um, but yes, agreed.
All right. So, well, thank you very much for coming on here today and telling your story. Um, let's see here. Is there anything else that you want to add before we go ahead and go?
Um, just keep fighting. To be honest, I use the system as much as possible. I use their rules, their laws. I hold them to the standards that we as normal citizens are held accountable to. I'm also I'm this knowledge isn't mine, So if you're watching, look me up, Christopher Adam Throckmorton. Um, I'll be more than happy to share anything that I've learned as far as different, stuff, cases, situations, things that I've learned about over the past few years that could maybe help somebody else, even though they're not specifically tailored to my situation. I remember and retain a good bit of these kinds of information, so I'll be more than happy to share, some information as well. But yeah, that's about it. Thank you very much for, everybody having me on here today. Thank you very much, Noman. Um, and thank you for listening to my story, taking time out of your freaking holiday to discuss everybody's lack of freedom. More people are actually discussing this on this kind of holiday, and we get a little further. But thank you for taking the time out. From whatever you were doing today, barbecue, whatever it may be, and listening to my story. Um, that's about it.
No problem. Well, thank you all very much for tuning in. Thank you very much, Chris. You have a wonderful day. Have a great holiday. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. Um, you all have a very wonderful holiday. Thank you for taking the time out today to come and view this. All right. Please spread the message and have a great day.